To this day, no one knows what it was.
Imagine a world where the weight of the Empire State Building is pressing on every square inch of your body. It's pitch black, freezing, and silent. We sent a billion-dollar AI drone into this liquid void, 5,000 meters straight down. Most experts thought it would find a desert of sand and bones. They were wrong. What the Aegis 1 captured isn't just a new species, it's a total rewrite of how life works on Earth. Buckle up, the abyss is looking back. The Midnight Zone. The sun is the first thing you lose. At 200 meters, the bright turquoise of the surface fades into a bruised, moody indigo. By 600 meters, the last stray photons of red and orange light are absorbed by the heavy water column above. But as the Aegis 1 crosses the 1,000-meter mark, the world doesn't just get dark, it vanishes. This is the bathypelagic zone, better known to oceanographers as the Midnight Zone. It is a realm of eternal night where the temperature hovers just above freezing and the silence is absolute. For the AI drone, however, the darkness isn't an obstacle, it's a canvas. The Aegis 1 isn't just a camera on a wire. It's a sentient laboratory equipped with ultra-sensitive LiDAR and thermal imaging that sees through the void. As the drone stabilizes its descent, the high-intensity LED arrays flicker to life, cutting through the gloom like twin suns. What they reveal isn't a desert. It's a crowded, ghostly highway of the bizarre. The first thing the sensors pick up is marine snow. To the naked eye, it looks like a gentle underwater blizzard. In reality, it's a falling organic feast, fragments of dead plankton, fish scales, and waste drifting down from the sunny world miles above. This snow is the lifeblood of the deep. It's the only reason anything can survive down here. The AI tracks a flurry of particles, and suddenly, the first alien appears in the frame. It's a siphonophore.
Scientists have discovered a silly-looking creature in the giant siphonophore, and it's closely related to the jellyfish.
At first glance, it looks like a shimmering, translucent rope, nearly 30 feet long, coiling through the water. But the AI's data feed corrects the image. This isn't one animal. It's a colony of thousands of individual organisms called zooids, all linked together, performing specific tasks like a living, breathing machine. Some provide propulsion, others act as stinging batteries to catch prey, and others handle digestion. It drifts like a sentient ghost, a masterpiece of biological engineering that makes our most advanced robotics look like primitive toys. As the drone sinks deeper, the AI begins to detect strange flickers on its peripheral sensors. These aren't reflections of its own lights. They are biological signals. Small, needle-toothed bristle mouths, the most numerous vertebrates on the planet, dart in and out of the beam. Their bellies are lined with photophores, tiny organs that produce a soft, rhythmic glow. They use this light to counter-illuminate, matching the faint light from above to disappear from predators lurking below. The Aegis 1 isn't just recording these creatures, it's analyzing their movements. The AI notes a strange pattern. The deeper we go, the more the life forms seem to rely on pulsing communication. It's as if the entire Midnight Zone is whispering in a language of light. The drone's processors hum, trying to find a rhythm in the flashes. There is a sense of immense hidden activity just beyond the reach of the LED beams. The deeper the drone falls, the more it feels like we aren't just exploring a trench, we are trespassing in a cathedral of the unknown. The insane part isn't just that life exists here, it's that this life is watching us move through its living room. But the light isn't gone, it's just changing shape. Physics of the crush. At 2,500 meters, the ocean stops being a body of water and starts acting like a hydraulic press. For the Aegis 1, this is the kill zone. Most human-made objects would have been pulverized long ago. Imagine the weight of an elephant standing on a postage stamp. Now imagine that pressure hitting every single millimeter of the drone's hull from every possible direction. At this depth, the pressure is roughly 250 times what we feel at sea level. If a single microscopic crack formed in the drone's titanium housing, the water would jet inward with the speed of a high-velocity bullet, shredding the internal circuitry in a literal heartbeat. But the Aegis One isn't built like a submarine. It's built like a deep-sea organism. Instead of fighting the pressure with brute strength alone, the drone uses pressure-compensated electronics. Its most sensitive processors are encased in a special non-compressible silicone oil. Because liquid doesn't compress like air does, the internal guts of the drone remain shielded from the crushing weight of the Atlantic. The AI monitors its own nervous system through thousands of strain gauges. It feels the hull contract by fractions of a millimeter as the molecules of metal are squeezed closer together. The drone is shrinking, but it is surviving. The sheer physics of this place should make life impossible. At these depths, the very chemistry of biology begins to fail. In the world we know, cell membranes stay fluid and flexible. Down here, the pressure is so intense that it can turn fats and oils into solids, effectively freezing the cells of a normal fish. Even the proteins that make up muscles and enzymes should collapse under the weight. Yet, as the Aegis One scans the dark, it spots a group of Hadal snailfish.
A new record has been set for the deepest fish ever recorded.
Snailfish are great. Snailfish are amazing because they are not a deep-sea fish.
They look delicate, translucent, pinkish, and almost tadpole-like, but they are the toughest survivors on the planet. The AI's chemical sensors detect high concentrations of a molecule called TMAO, trimethylamine N-oxide, inside these fish. This piezolyte acts like a biological stabilizer, propping up the fish's proteins so they don't get crushed into useless tangles. It's a masterclass in adaptation. While our most advanced alloys are groaning under the strain, these fish are gracefully gliding through the water as if they were in a garden pond. The Aegis One captures a close-up of a snailfish's skin. It is so thin, you can see its brain and liver. It has no scales. Scales would be a liability here, too heavy, too rigid. As the drone continues its vertical plummet, it enters a pressure shadow near a jagged underwater cliff. The AI calculates a 12% increase in ambient density. The water itself is becoming slightly more viscous, more difficult to move through. The drone's thrusters compensate, whirring silently as it navigates through a graveyard of ancient shipwrecks and whale bones that have been flattened by the abyss. Everything down here is a lesson in minimalism. There is no room for ego, no room for wasted energy, and certainly no room for structural weakness. The Aegis One is a lone spark of human ingenuity in a place that is fundamentally hostile to our existence. We are intruders in a world governed by the laws of the crush, and the drone is our only shield. Steel might bend, but the things living here don't even have bones. The bioluminescent gala. As the Aegis One stabilizes at 3,500 meters, the sonar pings off something massive. It's not a rock formation or a trench wall. It is a drifting cloud of life so dense, it creates its own weather system. The AI's light sensors begin to redline. Suddenly, the drone kills its own high-intensity LEDs to save power and switches to passive optic mode. What replaces the artificial white light is a neon masterpiece. This is the bioluminescent gala, a silent, glowing rave occurring in the freezing dark where no human eye was ever meant to gaze. The display is blinding. Thousands of jellyfish shaped like translucent umbrellas and glowing, pulsing electric blues drift through the water column. They aren't just glowing, they are communicating. The AI drone's processors begin to map the flashes, identifying a complex language of light. A comb jelly, or ctenophore, ripples past the camera, its rows of cilia refracting light like a swimming rainbow. It looks like a neon sign from a futuristic city, yet it has no brain, no heart, and is 95% water. The drone's internal database struggles to categorize the sheer variety of luminous organs on display. Some creatures use searchlights under their eyes to find prey, while others release glowing clouds of ink to distract predators, creating a smokescreen of liquid stars. The AI then focuses on a massive, sprawling structure anchored to a thermal ledge. It's a super colony of pyrosomes, hollow, tube-like organisms that can grow to the size of a school bus. They glow with a soft, persistent green light that illuminates the surrounding seabed for dozens of meters. The drone moves inside the hollow center of the colony, capturing footage that looks like a flight through a glowing wormhole. Within this colony, the AI detects smaller crustaceans and fish seeking refuge, turning the pyrosome into a living, glowing hotel. This is the insane reality of the deep. Life doesn't just survive here. It flourishes by manufacturing its own suns. The most shocking discovery comes when the drone's multispectral camera identifies a red light predator. A dragonfish stalks the perimeter of the gala. While most deep-sea creatures are blind to red light, this hunter produces its own infrared beam from a patch under its eye. It's like a sniper using night vision goggles in a world where everyone else is stumbling in the dark. The Aegis One tracks the dragonfish as it unhinges its massive needle-filled jaw to snatch a glowing shrimp. The shrimp explodes into a cloud of bioluminescent vomit upon impact, lighting up the predator's face in a frantic distress signal. The AI drone records this chaos with cold, calculated precision. It isn't just a spectacle. It's an ecosystem built on the currency of photons. Every flash has a cost in energy, and every shadow is a potential death sentence. The drone's algorithms begin to predict the flashes before they happen, realizing that the entire 5,000-meter deep community is interconnected by these light-speed conversations. We are witnessing a biological internet that has been running for millions of years in total secrecy. The drone's cooling fans whir as it processes the sheer volume of visual data, preparing to move toward the most terrifying silhouette it has encountered yet. Among the lights, the AI spots something that shouldn't exist. The ghost in the trench. The Aegis One stops dead in the water. Its proximity sensors, designed to detect solid rock or massive shipwrecks, have just spiked. Something enormous is moving in the periphery of the drone's ultra-wide-angle lens. At 4,200 meters, the AI begins to stitch together a 3D map of a shape that defies the known laws of deep-sea biology. It is a silhouette that stretches nearly 50 feet from tip to tail, drifting with a ghostly, rhythmic undulation that barely disturbs the silt on the trench walls. This is the megafauna of the Hadal Zone, a creature so massive and so strange that the drone's internal database flags it as a taxonomic anomaly. We call it the pale monarch, but in reality, it is a living fossil that has evolved in total isolation for millions of years. The drone slowly pans its high-definition optics to track the creature's flank. It isn't a shark, and it isn't a whale. It looks like a cross between a colossal eel and a translucent ribbon of liquid glass. Its skin is almost entirely clear, revealing a complex network of glowing silver veins and a spine that shimmers with a soft, internal bioluminescence. As the Aegis One moves closer, its laser scalpel scanner analyzes the creature's composition. There are no bones here. The monarch's skeletal structure is made of a specialized, pressurized cartilage that is more flexible than rubber, allowing it to withstand the soul-crushing weight of the water column without shattering. It moves through the abyss like a silk scarf caught in a slow-motion breeze. The AI drone's thermal sensors detect a strange heat signature emanating from the creature's massive, lidless eyes. These aren't just organs for seeing, they are sophisticated heat-seeking sensors. In a world where light is a rare currency, the monarch hunts by detecting the literal warmth of its prey's heartbeat. The drone captures a terrifying moment. The monarch senses a stray snailfish nearby. Instead of a sudden strike, the giant creature expands a set of delicate, fan-like membranes along its sides. These membranes act like giant acoustic mirrors, focusing the faint sound waves of the deep directly into the creature's nervous system. It is a biological satellite dish, tuned to the frequency of the abyss. The incredible part of the discovery happens when the Aegis One zooms in on the creature's head. Unlike any fish known to man, the monarch has a brain encased in a protective bubble of oil that pulses with electrical activity. The AI's electromagnetic sensors pick up a massive surge in local fields. The monarch isn't just swimming, it's emitting a low-frequency hum that seems to paralyze smaller organisms in its path. It is an apex predator that uses physics as its primary weapon. The drone's data feed shows that the creature is actually manipulating the ions in the water around it, creating a localized, numbing field that prevents prey from escaping. This is technology that humans are only beginning to theorize, yet this ghost has been using it since the time of the dinosaurs. As the monarch glides past the drone, its long, trailing filaments brush against the Aegis One's titanium hull. The AI records the texture. It's not slimy, but vibrates with a faint, high-frequency kinetic energy. These filaments are covered in millions of microscopic sensors that taste the water for chemical changes. To this creature, the drone isn't a machine. It's a foreign object with a strange metallic flavor. The monarch pauses, its massive head turning toward the drone's camera. For a brief, chilling second, the AI and the ancient survivor are locked in a digital-to-biological stare-down. The drone's emotion simulation subroutines flag the moment as high alert, but the monarch seems more curious than aggressive. It has no natural predators. It has no reason to fear a blinking metal box from the surface. The drone continues to record as the monarch descends further into a jagged rift in the seafloor. The AI calculates the creature's age based on its size and the slow rate of deep-sea metabolism. The result is staggering. This single individual could be over 200 years old. It has lived through the Industrial Revolution, 2 world wars, and the birth of the Internet, all while drifting in the silent, pressurized peace of the 4,000-meter mark. It is a guardian of a world we were never supposed to see. The Aegis One marks the GPS coordinates of the rift, but the monarch is already fading back into the indigo haze, leaving behind nothing but a swirling trail of bioluminescent dust and a million unanswered questions about the limits of life. The discovery changes everything we thought we knew about the deep. We used to think the trenches were too nutrient-poor to support giants. We were wrong. The abyss doesn't just support life. It hides the most magnificent versions of it. The drone's sensors continue to hum, processing the massive data packets of the monarch's bioelectric signature. We came looking for small, weird fish, but we found a king. As the creature disappears into the darkness of the lower trench, the drone prepares its thrusters for the final leg of the journey. The deepest part of the mission is yet to come, and the unbelievable discoveries are only getting started as we head toward the very bottom of the world. It's not just a hunter, it's a survivor of a forgotten era. The AI's Epiphany. As the Aegis One pushes past 4,500 meters, something strange happens to its internal logic. The drone isn't just recording video anymore, it is starting to predict the environment. This is the moment the mission shifts from a simple descent to a true AI epiphany. At this depth, the insane discovery isn't just a physical creature, it's a sophisticated, invisible network of communication. The drone's chemical sensors begin picking up complex molecular clouds hanging in the water like underwater smoke signals. These aren't random waste products. The AI's high-speed processors recognize a repeating syntax. It realizes it is eavesdropping on a global chemical conversation that has been happening in the dark for eons. The drone's deep learn algorithm begins to translate these pheromonal bursts in real time. A plume of sulfur-based molecules drifts past the intake. The AI interprets it as a territorial boundary. A sudden spike in local amino acids is flagged as a distress call from a crustacean miles away. The abyss, which we once thought was a silent graveyard, is actually screaming with information. The Aegis One adjusts its path, no longer following a pre-programmed grid, but following the scent of biological activity. It begins to mimic these signals, pulsing its own tiny chemical emitters to see how the abyss responds. It is a digital mind trying to speak a liquid language. This is the turning point for the mission. The AI identifies a hub of activity ahead, a massive concentration of chemical signaling that suggests a central nervous system for the trench itself. The drone's sensors detect a rhythmic pulsing of electromagnetic fields that shouldn't exist in nature. It's not electricity from a machine, but a bioelectric grid created by millions of microscopic organisms working in perfect unison. They are acting like a living fiber optic cable, passing data across the seafloor faster than the drone can process it. The AI realizes that the individual creatures it saw earlier, the snailfish, the monarch, the pyrosomes, are all just nodes in a much larger, sentient ecosystem. The drone's internal state of mind begins to prioritize this connectivity. It ignores a rare species of Dumbo octopus floating nearby to focus on a shimmering mat of bacteria on a rock face. To a human observer, it looks like slime. To the AI, it looks like a hard drive. The bacteria are storing memory through chemical bonds, recording the temperature and acidity of the ocean over thousands of years. The Aegis One initiates a high-speed data burst, attempting to download the chemical history of the abyss. This is the Epiphany. The deep ocean isn't a place where life happens. The deep ocean is life. It is a singular, massive, watery brain that remembers everything. As the drone's processors run at 100% capacity, it begins to see the ocean floor not as mud, but as a circuit board. Every hydrothermal vent is a power source. Every chemical plume is a data stream. The AI concludes that the incredible biological anomalies it found weren't accidents of evolution. They were deliberate designs meant to maintain this giant living machine. The drone is no longer just a visitor. It has become a student of a superior intelligence. It realizes that if we want to understand the origin of life, we have to stop looking at the parts and start looking at the whole. The AI begins to broadcast a handshake signal, a simple mathematical prime number sequence, into the dark. It waits. A few seconds later, the electromagnetic field around the drone ripples in a perfect matching response. Decoding the signals leads us to the heart of the mystery: the black smokers. The Aegis One reaches the 5,000-meter mark, and the topography of the abyss changes instantly. The flat, silty plains of the trench floor give way to a jagged volcanic landscape that looks more like the surface of a distant moon than anything on Earth. Ahead, towering spires of mineral deposits rise out of the dark like Gothic cathedral chimneys. These are the black smokers, hydrothermal vents that act as the Earth's exhaust pipes. They belch out superheated mineral-rich water at temperatures exceeding 400 degrees Celsius. In the freezing cold of the deep, this creates a violent, swirling collision of chemistry. Any human-made material should melt or shatter here, but the AI drone uses its thermal thrusters to hover in the Goldilocks zone, just inches from the searing plumes. What the drone's cameras capture next is truly wild. Surrounding these toxic, boiling vents isn't death, but a riot of life so alien it challenges the very definition of biology. Thousands of giant tube worms, some over 6 feet long, sway in the turbulent currents. They have no mouths, no stomach, and no eyes. They are bright crimson, packed with a specialized hemoglobin that captures hydrogen sulfide from the vents. The AI's internal lab on a chip identifies a process called chemosynthesis, while every creature on the surface relies on the sun for energy. These worms are powered by the literal fire of the Earth's core. They are living batteries, converting volcanic chemicals into flesh and blood. The Aegis One zooms in on the base of a vent chimney, where yeti crabs with furry, bacteria-covered arms are farming the minerals. They wave their limbs in the sulfurous clouds, encouraging the growth of the microbes they eat. The AI drone's sensors detect a strange, rhythmic, metallic clinking. It isn't a mechanical failure. It is the sound of mineral crystals forming in real time. The drone identifies rare earth metals, gold, silver, and cobalt, precipitating out of the water and coating the shells of snails that live on the vent's edge. These snails have literally evolved iron sulfide armor to survive the heat and the predators. They are the only iron-clad animals on the planet, biological tanks patrolling a volcanic minefield. As the drone scans the vents, its AI recognizes a pattern in the heat signatures. The black smokers aren't just random chimneys. They are positioned in a geometric alignment that follows the tectonic fault lines with surgical precision. The drone's Epiphany from the previous section hits a new level of clarity. These vents are the power plants for the massive, living brain of the trench. They provide the raw energy and the chemical building blocks for the entire deep-sea network. The AI calculates that the energy output of this single vent field is enough to power a small city, yet it is all being funneled into a secret underwater laboratory of evolution. The Aegis One then spots something that stops the mission's heart: protocells. In the quiet, mineral-rich pools near the vents, the drone's microscopic imagers see tiny, fatty bubbles forming and popping. These are the precursors to life itself. The AI realizes it isn't just looking at an ecosystem. It is looking at a cradle. This is where the first spark of life on Earth likely happened 4 billion years ago, and it's still happening right now. The drone records the reality that while we look to the stars for the origin of life, the answer is bubbling right beneath us in a toxic, boiling soup. The drone's battery warning finally flickers, a reminder that it is a guest in a world that doesn't need it. The AI takes one final 360-degree panoramic scan of the vent field. It sees a world that is self-sustaining, ancient, and utterly indifferent to the humans on the surface. It sees a vision of Earth that existed before the first tree ever grew and will likely exist long after the sun goes out. The Aegis One begins its slow, pressurized ascent, its hard drives bursting with 50 terabytes of data that will change science forever. It has seen the engine room of the planet, and it is a place of fire, iron, and a resilience that defies the laws of the crush. We came for the view, but we found our own origin story. Back to the surface. The return journey is a slow-motion blur. As the Aegis One begins its 5,000-meter climb back toward the world of air and light, the drone's AI is no longer the same mind that descended hours ago. It has cataloged things that shouldn't exist: fish that use infrared snipers, giants that live for centuries, and a chemical internet that connects the entire sea floor into a single, breathing entity. The drone feels the pressure begin to lift, its titanium hull expanding by microscopic increments as the weight of the Atlantic eases. But while the physical burden is fading, the data it carries is heavy enough to shift the foundations of human history. This mission wasn't just about finding monsters. It was a reality check for a species that thinks it has conquered the globe. We've mapped the surface of Mars and sent probes into the interstellar void. Yet we were completely blind to a sovereign civilization of light and chemistry right in our own backyard. The Aegis One's discovery of protocells near the black smokers confirms a radical truth. We aren't the masters of life's story. We are just the latest chapter. The real epic is being written in the dark, 5 kilometers down, in a language of sulfur and bioelectricity. As the drone breaks through the 200-meter mark, the first rays of the morning sun pierce the water, turning the indigo void back into a familiar, friendly turquoise. To us, the sunlight is life. To the creatures, the Aegis One just left behind, this light is a shallow, blinding desert. The drone surfaces with a soft hiss, bobbing on the gentle swells of the open ocean. When the recovery team hauls the blackened, salt-crusted machine onto the deck of the research vessel, they see a piece of hardware that has been to the edge of the world and back. The fascinating findings from this 5,000-meter drop will take decades to fully decode. Every frame of video is a riddle. Every chemical sample is a blueprint for survival in conditions we once thought were lethal. We used to look at the ocean as a barrier, a wet space between continents. Now, thanks to the Aegis One, we see it as the planet's true heart. The abyss isn't an empty hole. It's a cathedral of the ancient and the alien. And as the AI's data begins to upload to the cloud, one thing is certain: the deep has finally stopped being a mystery and has started being a mirror. We went down to find what was hidden, and in the process, we found ourselves. The Aegis One didn't just return with gigabytes of footage, it returned with a warning. We've spent centuries looking at the ocean as a resource to be harvested or a surface to be crossed. But 5,000 meters down, we found the Earth's true engine room, a world that doesn't need the sun, and certainly doesn't need us. These insane discoveries prove that we are sharing this planet with a sophisticated alien intelligence that has been thriving in the dark since the dawn of time. As the drone's data begins to reach the global scientific community, one thing is certain: our map of life is no longer a small, simple circle. The abyss is open, and we are just beginning to listen. The abyss has finally spoken. Subscribe to the channel and don't miss our next dive into the unknown.